council or whatever. I'm like, dude, I make myself a lightning rod enough. I don't need to do more of it. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. Just some quick announcements. While I let some people file in here. Um, so we have a pretty great agenda for tonight. There's a lot that's happened with the last couple of weeks with members of the Go Bigger crew. So I'd love to dive into some updates there and also some teachable moments and breadcrumbs that we can tease out that you can apply in your own journey. That being said, just the big thing is that we're not having a Zoom like this next week. We are doing an in-person meetup at Radio Social, 6 o'clock on Wednesday. We have an in-person meeting maybe 3 to 4 times a year. We are going to be announcing the winner of our contest. For those of you who are newer in the group, you'll be brought up to speed on that. But let's check in on the contest actually because I have some huge news. Um, I just overtake Matt Barbaccia today. He's at 62 points. I'm at 63. I think I can close the gap with the two Dark Lords, uh, Mike and Mike and Peter. But really, part and parcel to this whole thing here. For those of you who are newer to the group, we run this game a few times a year. This is all about what with tracks like the leading indicators, like the KPIs you need to integrate into your habits each week. The whole idea for the game is to yes have some trash talking and that sort of thing. Somebody wins a little bit of cash, but also to really keep bring a competition here, hold each other accountable, and have a little bit of fun at the same time. So I'm looking forward to announcing the next contest sometime in spring. This has been a game changer for me and a lot of people in the group. It kind of by gamifying what it takes to not only close your first deal, but the next deal and the third, fourth, and fifth deal after that. This is really this stuff right here. If you can print this out and post it up on on your whatever your refrigerator at the top of your desk. It's definitely very helpful. So, anyways, that being said, so in-person meetup, Radio Social, 6 o'clock next week. Significant others are welcome. Even kids are welcome, that sort of thing. I'm be bringing my two kids, so it'll be a way to get together and get to know each other on more of a personal basis, and not have to always be talking shop and that sort of thing. So that being said, I have a couple of newer members I want to introduce to the group. Maxim, have you come in on one of these yet? Introduce yourself. I don't remember. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, hi. No, this is the first one.
Yeah, is that Maxim? Tell us a little about yourself.
I just joined this group not too long ago. I think it was about 2 months ago, right? Um, I have small portfolio, a couple of rental units. I've been working as a sales manager at the dealership for the past 13 years. Recently, I changed my career, and now I full-time real estate investor and business owner.
Excellent. And then where are you based out of?
Limbrook, New York.
Limbrook. Excellent. Yeah, and also, yeah, hopefully you're able to link up with some of our downstate folks. I know I connected with you with Josh Rosenberg as well. So
Yeah, we messaged, but we haven't met up yet.
okay, yeah. So no, that'd be great for you to meet Josh too. And then I think so. I think we saw somebody else in here. I know Kimber and Nia. Who's Samsung SM driving in a car? Is that Irena or Irene?
Yes, that's me. I'm sorry. I'm driving, but I don't have I didn't have time to set it up. So I'm handling whatever numbers.
All right. Well, excellent. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see you next week at the in-person meetup.
Yes, I will be there. That day CRB like end of the year party too, but I will be there like 6:30, but I'll definitely be there.
Okay. All right. Excellent. We'll see you then. And it's Irene. Is that how you pronounce your first name?
Irene, that's perfect.
Okay, all right, sounds good. It's spelled as Irene, but it's Irene. So,
Thank you.
um,
Thank you for that.
well, yeah, welcome to the group.
Thank you.
Um,
I'm so excited.
yeah, absolutely. All right, so agenda for tonight is one thing is and by the way, if you have any questions or anything like that, pop them in the chat. Just put a number one on there so I can call on you if you have any questions or anything like that. I want to get better about that and having more engagement on these calls. Um, but before I kind of dive into like what I've learned and the stuff that I've done in terms of the and also the wins that I've had over the past couple of weeks, who wants to come up in terms of like recent wins that they've had or revelations or troubles they've had in their business or anything like that? Yeah, I know I've talked to a couple of you guys. Recent wins.
I don't have a recent win, but I did get financials on a second property, the one in West Nyack, New York. And similar to the first part of the property we looked at, the asking price just seems way too high. So I think that's one thing I'm noticing. So, but I need to put some time on your calendar where we could go through the two deals in more detail through the spread. I've updated the spreadsheets, but we need to go through them together.
Yeah, no, they'll be definitely helpful. Because yeah, the spreadsheet financial model that I have is like is definitely can be intimidated for first time use, but once you get the reps in and us doing it together, all of you, it gets easier and easier. So, okay, well, I got to pick on Casey and Carlo. I was just on a call with them at around 4 o'clock. Casey and Carlo, your recent win on your medical office building complex.
So we have signed a PSA and we are doing some due diligence now. And talked to you earlier about some questions we had about some financials and hitting up the broker to see if we can get some answers to our questions to make this make a little more sense. And going from there. What did I forget, Carla?
No, I mean that's about it at this point. I did email him the questions like literally 2 minutes ago, so you'll be copied in on it. But yeah, just waiting to get some more clarification on some numbers that were a bit confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other part of the win here too is that you guys said that you had now this is a deal that's like on the higher end of the spectrum from a price standpoint. So Carlo and Casey will need to bring in an additional owner, part of the ownership group, for their balance sheet purposes, not just the capital raise, but also the balance sheet purposes, because this will be around like I don't know, high $3 million loan, low $4 million loan, I think, right?
Yeah,
Um,
the
Correct.
loan I think would be about 3.1.
okay. Yeah, so you identified somebody who's the least interested that might have the balance sheet and that sort of thing. Tell us about that.
So I have actually I have two people in mind that both have pretty significant balance sheets. One is a friend of mine I've known for years that just happened to be about 2 weeks ago telling me that he's got this great portfolio and he's missing real estate. And I said, "Oh, imagine that." So we started talking about that, and he seems pretty interested. And the other person that I have in mind is a family member, but always willing to invest when the time's right for him. So we're gonna try one and then try the other and see what happens.
Yeah, and Casey, and also like you guys have been like assembling some private lenders that you're bringing to the table too to like kind of like lower the amount of raise and also kind of de-risk the deal for whoever else is bringing their balance sheet to the table as well as and also they would have to bring less cash as well, so you'd be able to basically chop down $1 million raise to like let's say a $500,000 raise so they can get some equity and also put some cash in the deal too. So Casey, how did this so this was a longtime friend, I take it. I guess like how did you like get into that conversation? I'd say this is the one thing that is intimidating to the most amount of people is like geez, like how do we even like initiate the conversation? Like I've never raised capital before. Like how do we even like, do this so that we can learn some things we can apply and our own interactions out there, whether we're networking, canvassing our sphere of influence, or networking to strategically expand our sphere of influence, and all that stuff.
So with me, both my kids play travel hockey, and a lot of people that play travel hockey seem to have money. So when I first started with the group, I just started right there and was telling everyone what I was doing. And every week we'd sit around. Well, when they were younger and we had to still drive them all the time, we would sit around and have an hour and a half, 2 hours to sit at the rink, and we would just talk. And I would tell them about the group and what people were doing and what I was interested in doing. And I had a few that would, tell me that they would be interested if something came along that I thought was worthwhile. And then I kept that up. I've almost been 2.5, 3 years in the group, and I just keep talking about it. And this guy always seemed very interested. And then when he, a couple weeks ago, told me that, I said, "Oh, that's kind of funny. We have something in the pipeline right now that I think you might be interested in." And we just talked a little more about it. And he said, "Yeah, I would definitely like to sit down and talk." And I know he's
Yeah.
got boatloads of money.
So Casey, this sounds like a ridiculous question, but did you enroll your kids into travel hockey purposefully to get around people with that have money?
No, I enrolled them in hockey because I thought it was really cute when they were younger, and I played hockey my whole life. So, I never realized the amount of money that was going to go into travel hockey. And I didn't actually think we'd actually get to the travel level, but then all of a sudden my kids became pretty good. And my son's off in Connecticut playing for a juniors team, avoiding college for another year. But my daughter is she's pretty good, and she's got some college teams looking at her, and so it just kind of blossomed from there. But I never really realized until you started going on the tournaments and seeing other people's lifestyles that they were some of these people were as wealthy as they were. But not just in with hockey. Since I've started taking the and being in the group, I always call it the class, but being in the group, I've just constantly been telling people what I've been doing, and trying to expand my sphere.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, the reason why I asked that sort of like ridiculous rhetorical question is that a lot of people are like, I don't know anybody with money. Like all of my friends and family are broke. Like I'm the person that's got their like proverbial, oh, I almost said the bad word, stuff together. And so like there's always something that you're doing already that you can just bolt this on. All right. So whether for me, for instance, getting involved with politics, right? So I organize fundraiser for political candidates that I'm particularly passionate about. I collaborate with high net worth individuals on those funders. Hold on a second, Holly. I collaborate with other high net worth, not other high net worth individuals, because I'm not a high net worth individual, not yet. But other people that are in there, collaborate with them. I meet new people there that are business leaders, obviously people that have the disposable income to be able to like drop like $1,000, $2,500 for some sort of like, fundraiser, that sort of thing. So that was something that I was already doing. I was already like politically active in it, advocating for housing, for instance, housing policy, sensible housing policy, and all that sort of thing. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do to kind of like transmute this and bolt on and add as an activity to that whole thing that will expand my capacity to raise capital via building relationships, nurturing those relationships, and also building this circular influence of those people that kind of run around those circles, right? So, so that's great, Casey. And also, I did want to get it. I do want to go around the horn with any additional wins or deal updates that people have. I did want to get your permission. I did erase all of the address information off of the spreadsheet. Is it okay if I pull that up later on and just kind of show people what historical financials look like on a deal, middle due diligence?
It's fine with me as long as it's fine with Carlo.
Okay. All right, cool. So any other deal updates, everybody? Wins, losses, brain damage, and things you learn from it. All right, Matt.
I was gonna say I can chime in. I finally closed my industrial deal on December 30th in the final hours of 2025, which is pretty sweet because I'm lining up a cost segregation now that's pretty well needed on my end for 2025. So it was good timing. But I really had to like sound the horn to get everybody into a room on the 30th, and this was like the last closing that my attorney did that year. And everybody was sort of like just leaving it off because the deal got thrown into limbo for quite a while and nobody was really moving anything. So to get deals done, just a reminder obviously to continue to check in on a daily or every other day basis with like paralegals or whoever you're working with that might put other priorities ahead of yours if you don't toot the horn. But yeah, and then the other interesting thing about the deal was I held through my final walkthrough, I noticed that the owners had not cleared out any of the stuff they had agreed to clear out, which some of it is quite valuable. Power tools, all sorts of like materials, electrical line, plumbing, just the whole works, bunch of masonry equipment. But I still took it as, as what it was supposed to be at our agreement was that the building was gonna be cleared out. So I held $5,000 during the closing in an escrow account that the attorneys held on to. And then I created an itemized list of everything. There were a bunch of tires, bunch of like just hazardous materials, 5-gallon buckets of who knows what that all has to be disposed of. And between everybody here and no one else, I basically took all these photos I took and I input it into GPT and I was like, give me a very intricate list of everything itemized that I'm going to need to get rid of here. Break down, by item, count the number of buckets, the number of cinder blocks, the number of this, number of that. Take your time with this, and then report back to me in a table format the explanation. And it basically came out with a number that was just north of $5,000. I checked everything afterwards, but this report would have taken me like 3 hours to do, and it was done in about 10 minutes. And then it cited local disposal locations, their rates that it had found online to get rid of hazardous material. Tires are recycled at $5 a tire at this one place in, Waterloo. So it was really neat. I sent that over to them and the sellers just like were, taken away by it because it was, 12 pages or so. And they didn't question anything. They just said, take the 5K. I'm like, all right. So I have all this scaffolding equipment, all this, I don't know what happened to this guy, but he just disappeared and left all his equipment there. So it'll be interesting, giving stuff away and selling stuff to see what I can also add on to that, sweet little bonus that I got at the end of the deal. But so it was a neat move.
Yeah, so what's the next step, Matt? You got I see you closed the deal on social media. I got a comment on that. All right. So that's good. You got a point for that. So kind of like what are your next steps like through this in terms of like adding value to the deal, kind of like weaving your story into the whole thing and all that, all that stuff.
Well, the one tenant that I inherited is a national like indoor industrial crane company called Crane One. They have 48 locations throughout the country. So I wasn't too worried about them holding up their obligation. But this is a little bit of a funny story. I go to, when I was doing my due diligence, the broker sent me a lease and it was from 2023 to 2024. I'm like, what's the story? And I couldn't get in touch with Crane One because they're dispatched out there at odd times. They don't actually occupy it, even though they have an office. But long story short, I go to call them finally after I have the property under contract. I go to the corporate number for this company, and they're like, "Okay, yeah, you're the new owner. Great. So what do you want us to pay for rent?" And I'm just like, when have you ever been asked by your tenant, like, that's been there for years, like what you should pay? So I was thinking to myself, I'm gonna come up with some crazy number, but I just stuck with what was reasonable. But I've just kind of felt off guard because I thought there was a lease in place, but it turns out they had just been paying them $1,000 a month. So I'm like, how about 1,250, and we'll sign a formal lease with escalations and everything after that. So that's great. They don't want to go anywhere. They're gonna stay there. The other 4 units in this building all have to be leased up. So once I get all that stuff cleared out, Vlad turned me on to Polycam, which I ended up just paying for the full subscription to it because it's a really cool software that can really lay out a room and give you dimensions and all these different features. I'd used it years ago, but it's been improved quite a bit, and it's a really cool tool if you're looking for a way to create like a 3D rendering or floor plans or whatever else. I think once I go through and do those renderings, I'm going to put that up for lease. Just try to do it on my own via Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, elsewhere. But it's all in the marketing, so I think I'll spend some time and really, portray the space at its optimal, condition. So there's some cosmetic work to be done, but it's pretty much turnkey. There's not really. I already have, in fact, someone sending me 4 hot leads of tenants that are looking for that type of space in this area that are all like, it's in high demand. And this guy ran out of flex space, and he's like, I'll send you these tenants. They're looking for space, and they probably sign with you tomorrow. But I want to hold off and just do everything in a correct step of sequence here. I'm going to cut myself off there. I'll keep going otherwise.
Okay, so yeah, so the Facebook Marketplace, one thing is that what I would do is if you have different size spaces there, or even the ability to have different size spaces, like in terms of like demising some of the larger spaces down even further, the more like inventory you can put up there, like the better. And like I said, like when you're marketing the spaces on your own and you can build relationships with people that are looking for that type of space, then you can add them kind of like to your like inventory of potential tenants as well. And I've made like such amazing relationships off that by having those people. And this is like something that brokers aren't willing to do, especially on smaller spaces. But yeah, don't let perfection be the enemy. Perfection be the enemy of good. So I like for our commercial spaces, I take photos with my iPhone, as much photos as possible. And sometimes the places don't look that great. Sometimes you don't know what you're looking at. And doing it that way. So, but yeah, no, cool, man. Yeah, and that's just make sure like document the journey every step of the way. It's closing, you've done that, but then also, this is your first industrial deal, so you want to kind of like start to change your public identity, your sort of influence as like somebody who does this, and the more they see you doing this, even the smallest things, because like for instance, like Mike Gesson just closed on a mixed use deal, right? And he posted for the first time today about this because he closed 2 weeks ago, and I was like, Mike, why haven't you told anybody about this, right? And he's like, well, I feel like kind of weird about it. I don't really do that. And I was like, dude, just let it rip, man, and don't let perfection be the enemy of good, right? And then also he called me today. Actually, it was late last night, and it was like, I have my tenant's apartment is flooding, and I have what should I do? Should I call ServPro in, all this and all this stuff, right? And so I was like, never call ServPro. Okay, I know that we have one person in the group that's actually a rep for ServPro, but they're used to working with insurance companies where the customer is completely disconnected from the cost, right? Because the insurance company is going to pay for it. But anyways, just document that experience, right? This is your first like trial by fire. This is actually Mike's first investment, Mike's first investment property. So like document that journey, right? And going to the site, taking video of like the leak and how you're figuring it out, and all those types of things along that journey. Like, is it the mishaps, like they add to your street credibility, and also keep at the top of your mind. Remember, I'm in real estate and I'm good at it. All right. Will it help you as you're expanding your sphere of influence, making new contacts, all right, and letting them know that in a subtle way. over time. So, any other recent wins, everybody? Okay, so I'll go. And also some of the things that I've learned. This for our state delegation in New York State, this is kind of like campaign season. There's a big election that's coming up. What is it? I think is it this year or next year? I think it's this year actually. And so anyways, I went to a political fundraiser, and my whole objective whenever I go into a new room is to make one new friend, maybe two. Okay. And so that's the objective I have. It's not to schmooze with everybody. And believe me, I went to this fundraiser, and when I first got there, I didn't know a single soul. Okay, which is it's like I'm pretty well networked and with the real estate industry locally, but I had a high amount of social anxiety because I was standing there. There's not a single face that I recognized, and it was intimidating, right? So I ended up just scanning the room and just picking out somebody to go pray on. All right. So I went up to this person, started talking to them. Come to find out, he's very passionate about charter schools, for instance. And so my daughter Holly goes to a local charter school, so we're talking about that, right? And then to come to find out, this guy sold his company back several years ago for a ton of money, and he's dedicating this next chapter of his life to trying to influence policy as it relates to charter schools and charter school funding and that sort of thing. So what I did is I was like, hey, listen, when are you looking to launch the book and all this other stuff? And he's like, well, I'm probably going to be launching it next year, and I have a certain amount of marketing budget set aside to then to market it. I want it to be a bestseller. I want to change the conversation around charter schools nationwide, and blah 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 blah. Okay, so as somebody who's marketed a lot myself and burned a lot of cash in the process, I was like, hey, listen, let's get lunch. I've learned a lot of hard lessons around marketing before, and using online advertising and all that sort of thing. So we met up, had lunch, and then we pretty much talked to each other for about 2 hours. This was somebody I'd never met before in my entire life. Learned his whole life story. And the reason why I like to learn somebody's life story is then I can actually kind of pull out threads of what might be common ground with those people. And really, I'm good at remembering those things too. So, anyways, I emailed him after, kind of with the action items, that sort of thing, for our meeting, and thanked him for taking the meeting. And then I have another meeting set up with him actually next week to spend a couple hours in his office. Okay. And because I'm going to kind of go through my ideas around a marketing campaign for the book. And he was like, yeah, I have $500,000 set aside to market this book, so I have a decent marketing budget. So I'm getting and he also said, or more, right? So now I'm kind of getting to okay, well, this guy has a decent amount of liquid disposable assets and that sort of thing. So what I'm trying to do is, I know that I can add a lot of value to this person. I'm not even in the relationship is so new that I'm not even in the whole hey, we have this development project coming up where we're going to need capital partners to do and that sort of thing. I'm just okay, I see an area where I can really add a lot of value to this person. So I'm going to spend some time with them and really try to rapidly build that relationship, so that a deal that we have, let's say, a year or two down the road, I have a relationship that's sort of matured, where that person is going to have a much higher probability of partnering with us on a deal, right? And this is somebody also that I that is I've never met before as well. So now I have this new circular reference point that I can place in my constellation or my network, right? I kind of call it a constellation, because when you're focusing, let's say, in a specific area, right? And this is the reason why I'm always a fan of investing in your own backyard, because it's easier to do this. Some of you invest remotely and that sort of thing, but you can build that network, and then you can have these references between each other, right? So that when that person that just met you, says, oh yeah, I met this guy Matt a couple weeks ago. Well, Matt who? Oh, Matt Drew. Oh, I know Matt. He's a great guy, right? So you have this intentionally built network where you have, as long as you have a positive feedback loop because you have a good reputation, you do what you say you're going to do, but you have this thing that's like, they can really like hypercharge your ability to in your capacity to raise capital in the future. And that's the one thing, is like, I know everybody is focused on the deal and the deals and analyzing and making offers, but for me, because I always, I've dealt with situations where I've been it's been a race down to the wire to close a deal, not having capital partners committed, and it is like the most stressful thing in my life, right? And I just don't want to put myself into that if I don't have to. So that's a recent win for me. And I did it again today. I went to a public safety meeting, and I scheduled a lunch with another investor that saw me at the last public safety meeting that I had with our local county sheriff. So this is something that's important all the time in terms of expanding your capacity. So that was my recent win. So anybody else? Okay. All right. So right now, we were talking earlier about Carlo and Casey. They just got the initial due diligence materials, the leases, the historical rents and financials and that sort of thing. During due diligence, this is the reason why 3 years is really important. Okay. So if we actually go down here, this is more the line items we were talking about today, because typically historical financials are going to look like shit. Okay. And so there's a lot of times where an owner misclassifies one-time major maintenance expenses or CapEx to repairs and maintenance and all that stuff, right? So as you can see here on the snow removal, right? It was $66,000 in 2023. It was $36,000 in 2024, and then it was $101,000 in the year-to-date 2025. Okay, so if you've looked at this at face value, just imagine if you only had 2 of these data points. Okay, you have $36,000 up to $101,000, right? Tripled, essentially, almost tripled. Okay, so the where this is really helpful is when you have 3 years, you kind of average them and say, okay, well, it's average $68,000 a year. Maybe, just maybe, they had typically in snow removal contracts, you have a down payment, and then sometimes the contractor, you pay them at the end of the season, right? In 2 payments. So in 2024, they may have made the deposit for the season, and then they ended up paying for the remainder of the contract in 2025. Okay, and then they paid the first installment and also the second installment before the end of 2025, maybe for tax reasons, I have no idea. But so this is where it helps, like getting those 3 data points, so then you can kind of like, because I'd like to ask questions to the broker. There's gonna be follow-up that Casey and Carlo are gonna have, but with like a little bit of like context that like, hey, I saw that the snow removal is all over the place. I'm just assuming, and I don't want to assume, like, what happened with that? Did they prepay in 1 year or whatever? Okay, so having those 3 data points is really helpful. Oh yeah, same thing with like and here's the thing too, is Casey and Carlo were asking, should we send this over to the potential investment partner yet, or some of our investors? And here's the thing, is like, if you do not completely understand every single line item, right, every single explanation and its detail around the little aberrations, I don't know if that's the right word, or anomalies in a financial statement, and money isn't dumb, right? So when you're presenting the deal to the investor, they're going to, some of them, the really savvy ones, are going to ask you, are going to be peppering you with questions. So you want to make sure that you have a very, very intimate understanding of this, and also the financial model, because you always want to under-promise and over-deliver rather than over-promise and under-deliver. Secondly, and then there's things that can, based upon the answers to these questions that Casey and Carlo ask, there can be there could be some substantial, changes in here that change the financial complexion of the property. And what you don't want to do is present a financial picture of the property without your full understanding, and then it changes, right? Because you deepened your understanding. Like, investors hate that. They just hate it, because it's like, well, if they felt comfortable presenting this to me the first time, they're saying, hey, these are the numbers of the property, and then they changed. It's a degradation of trust that happens there. All right, so you only want to share the financials in a property, but when at least after you and I have looked at the property and like, okay, this makes sense. This is what we can, this is how we're going to actually package this deal and tell the story of it. All right. Now, when you are bringing in a balance sheet partner that's going to be required in a transaction of this size, typically, if I'm going to have a partner involved in it, I will bring them on in terms of just the conversation. I may not present them financials because I'm still working on untangling, these, sometimes it's a mess. Okay. But I want to bring them early on in terms of awareness of the deal, sharing particulars. It's especially if this is a person that I trust, because I just find it's a better way when you're bringing somebody on and they're going to be signing on the debt with you as a personal guarantor. Remember, bringing their balance sheet to the table, bring the balance sheet to the table, having them early on, like, hey, yeah, you're my, I'm looking at you as a potential partner, bringing them early on. So what do you do before you have it to, kind of like untangle all of the financial due diligence, right? You can still, I can still set up a tour to walk the property with a potential partner, especially if this is going to be a duplicatable thing. If you find somebody that's got cash and also willing to sign the debt to you, you can write your own ticket, right? So you definitely want to make something that's scalable and duplicatable in terms of relationship. So you can walk the property, right? And you can say, now listen, we have our own numbers we put together based upon our offer, which could change obviously after we go through due diligence. There's a lot of stuff that we need to untangle in the historical financials that we've had, a lot of questions we have. So I'm just not at the point yet to present anything to you, because we don't even know if we're going to end up moving forward on this deal or not. All right. So you can show them the property, just don't dive into the financials yet until you have 100% understanding of it. So Casey and Carlo, did I do a decent characterization of our meeting today? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. So Daniel, any questions, anybody on that, anything on that, guys, at all? And we're still waking up from the winter break. All right. So I'm gonna call on people. Daniel Fallon.
Yes, sir.
So Daniel, you closed on your retail plaza deal.
I did.
So tell us what's going on with it.
It took a while for the leases to get assigned over, so I spent a little bit of time, waiting for those to come in. Thankfully, I didn't have to go out of pocket. Everything managed to come in just in time to pay the mortgage. There are still some ongoing small active leaks in the post office. I knew that from my walkthrough months ago. And I've got the name and number of the folks that were chasing them for the previous owners. I'm going to give them a call and try and get some history on what they've done and what they haven't done. And then I might bring in my own guys instead of sending them out, since they've been out multiple times. There's still a problem. So I don't think they're the solution ultimately, but I would like to get a little bit more background on it. Other than that, it's been pretty turnkey. I've got a good relationship going with the snowplow guy. He's very affordable, and Yeah, fairly smooth sailing. I think the next step would be to figure out if a cost seg is worth doing on that property or on the property I closed on a year ago. I've not explored that at all, and so I probably should. But yeah, I think that's the next order of business.
Yeah, so let's talk about cost seg. So what Daniel's referring to is a cost segregation study. Okay, and this is essentially you hire a specialized company that are like essentially like engineers, and they will take your building kind of like and into its parts. Okay, so and put them on their own unique depreciation schedule based upon their expected lifespan. So typically in commercial real estate, multifamily and multifamily property is depreciated over a 27.5 year period. A commercial property is depreciated over a 39-year period. Okay, so it has a much like lower amount of depreciation expenses you can take on commercial properties like retail strip plazas. So you hire this firm to basically break the property all up in terms of like, oh, the roofing system, the HVAC, the flooring, the windows. There's all these different pieces that they break up, and they put them on more accelerated depreciation schedules than you're typically allowed. All right, and also so you can essentially claim a lot more depreciation expense, which can offset the income from the property, and also those depreciation, those losses can get passed through back to the ownership group. They can also take some of those expenses against their active income. All right, so that's the benefit of a cost segregation study. All right, they're not free, but typically any cost segregation company will do a free estimate for you. Look at your they'll look at your building, and then they'll come up with an estimate, conservatively speaking, as to how much depreciation benefit that you can claim in that. And then what I do is I have them send that to my accountant. My accountant can review it and cross-reference it with my historical tax returns and all that stuff, and figure out, hey, I think this will save you $60,000 in taxes this year. All right, how much does the study cost? $5,000. Okay, that's a great ROI. So,
and is that I have a couple of questions around that. So is it a one-shot deal? Like if it's 60,000 and there's only 30,000 in tax savings this year, can you roll over the other 30 to 2027?
Yeah, great question. So you're going to have the different depreciation schedule and all the different components, right? So some of those that are, I think, on anybody who's a CPA here, correct me, because the tax law did change with a big beautiful bill. But I think it's less than 5 years, I believe. You can accelerate the depreciation, like essentially bonus depreciate certain shorter lifespan components. Don't quote me on what the lifespan is, but you can do that, right? I'm assuming you don't file as a real estate professional, Daniel?
I do not, no.
Okay, because you have a full-time gig right now for the time.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So filing for a real estate professional means you spend a certain amount of time per year operating your real estate business. All right. The benefit of real estate professional status is that you're not capped at the $25,000 a year that you can take against your active income from your passive losses. But you can actually, have 100% of that, right? Typically people that have W-2, they're capped at, I think it's $25,000 a year that they can take maximum in passive loss against it. What happens is that accrues and grows like a bank account and becomes essentially net loss carry forwards. Okay, or also they're called NOLs, or net operating losses, and you can carry those forward and bank them up and grow them for several years in the future for basically your entire life. Okay, so the question is, how do I harvest those? All right, so one, you could harvest them by quitting your job, Daniel. You could do that, and then operating as, like, let's say as a consultant. This is something that I did, and I think. Or Orlando, I think you did this too. Quit your job and become a consultant for the company you're working for. And then then I'm like, I can display that I'm spending a certain amount of time in real estate, right? Or you can sell properties you have capital gains on, and be able to harvest those net loss carry forwards that way. Harvest that bank account. So you may actually be able to sell a property and harvest those net operating losses and convert that equity to cash tax-free, at least tax-free for now. So they do have some benefit, but if you work as a W-2 for the rest of your life and don't sell any properties, then it's not really really that beneficial.
Yeah, understood. And then my other question was around, like, are you familiar with what is typically potentially contained within a building that offers that sort of accelerated benefit? So to give you an example, this is a Family Dollar and a US Post Office. So the Family Dollar's got shelving, they've obviously got perishable goods, cash registers, blah, blah, blah. And then the post office has some specialized equipment, et cetera. So the building, the roof, the walls, the floors, those are on your conventional depreciation schedule. And then everything within it, tables, chairs, whatever, would be on appliances, would be on perhaps an accelerated schedule. So is there a way to kind of eyeball a property to understand at a glance whether or not a cost seg is going to be worth your while to pursue?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it, is that you can get a free estimate.
Right. I was just I was just curious if you knew offhand, like, oh, if you've got a chalk-load of XYZ, it's a no-brainer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So one thing is, like, there's, the property is inside, like the stuff that's not bolted to the ground. Even it's like, I guess there'd be a question for like an accountant.
Yeah,
right?
fair
So
enough.
it's like, okay, a tenant left behind a hood and ansel system that's a trade fixture that now is attached to the space. Now I own it. Do we itemize this as a piece of equipment that's on the property? So in terms of eyeballing, I think that it's eyeballing it. It's from a discounted cash flow perspective, from a time value of money perspective. Typically, it's worth it as long as you understand the implications. All right, because what you're doing is something that you could have a prolonged chronic tax haven. Just keep it on a regular depreciation schedule. Essentially what you're doing is that you're accelerating the depreciation expense. So if you end up holding onto this property for, at the end, once those things are fully depreciated, then you have no more depreciation expense on the property. Okay. So that income and cash flow that they were enjoying, paying no taxes on because it was washed out because of depreciation, that's going to come to an end at some point in time. But if you're growing and buying deals in succession with each other, and you're having these, cost seg studies, that can actually, there's developers that I know that that are actually they purposely do this and stagger their purchases so that then, as properties no longer have depreciation expense as a benefit, then they have loss pass-throughs that are offset by other properties that they then do cost segregations on.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Matt, if I can add, right now we're going through one right now at Roseview. We submitted our paperwork. So we'll see hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I think, right, Vlad? We hope to hear back. So if you need a contact, the guy we're using, I think we got from you, Matt. So Jeff from CCSI.
Jeff Fagan, yeah.
Yeah. He'll look at your property. You give him the address and he'll give you a full report, kind of preliminary data, and then you could kind of make a decision based off of, what they say. But it's all free until you actually commit to doing the study.
Yeah, terrific. Sounds good. Thank you for that.
Wanted to mention. Go ahead, Vicki.
I was just going to say that it's basically your purchase price. We'll make, right there, you can tell. Like, I bought a few houses that were each 300,000. It wasn't worth it. Mm-hmm. So you want, it's based on your purchase price. And any anybody you talk to about cost seg, that's the first question they're going to ask you. It's very simple to get that answer and then go from there. And like everybody's saying, they give free estimates. I would even talk to 2 or 3 different people. It's not hard for them to do a free estimate.
Sure. Okay. Good to know. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff will actually calculate your ROI because we got back the preliminary and said, this is where we think we're going with this. This is what it's going to cost. So to Matt's point, you actually get an ROI from him. So you can, because we've got a couple up for cost seg, and I can see where Roseview is going to be a huge ROI. Some of the other ones are a little bit less, not terrible, but a little bit less ROI. So just a helpful benchmark, to decide whether or not you want to go forward with it.
Gotcha.
And another point is depreciation recapture. So if this is kind of not, a flip or a short-term hold, it's probably not worth it either. So
Got
that's
it.
another
Okay.
thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and the other caveat with a cost seg is that you end up lowering your basis much quicker. So that, and if you do go to sell, then your capital gain is that much bigger because you've got that depreciation recapture that's part of it as well.
Right.
So then you're almost like, for the 2 properties I did on it last year to reduce my taxes by 60 grand. I was like, I looked at it at the end of this, I was like, I can never sell these properties, right? Yeah, or I do a 1031 exchange. So
Yeah.
so I guess I'm curious, Orlando, because this is actually this is something interesting to me. Why did you decide to do a cost seg on these deals?
Well, right now we're only doing it on Roseview, just because we're looking at the numbers based on what they gave us. We've never done a cost seg, so we're also kind of using it as a pilot too, just to see how it works. So we're holding off on the other 2 acquisitions for now. As Todd mentioned, the numbers were much lower, so we're interested to see how does that reduces our own taxable liabilities, right? Individually, we all kind of have different things going on, so we figured with the purchase price, with everything we have going on at Roseview, it was a good test case for us, and the numbers made sense.
And I'm a real estate professional, but my wife's still working as a teacher, so I can use that to offset because of the way we file as well.
Okay, yeah, so you can use it to offset your some of your wife's income as well. Yeah.
Teachers make millions, by the way, so you really need something to offset it.
Oh, they should make millions. Anybody else, guys? Deal updates. Bring to the groups. Any wins, anything like that?
I've got my self-storage facility in Texas still going on.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of pressure to fund, to give my personal guarantee without an operating agreement among us 4 partners.
Really?
It's just all of them, all the other 3 are ready. I think they've already wired the money today. And I'm like, whoa, what the heck is going on? I've been told that we can do an amendment or something where we say we're closing, and then we will do and it's coming. It's the operating agreement will be figured out. I just don't want to do that, but I might be succumbing to peer pressure. The numbers are good, the deal is good, seller's getting very upset. So we could lose the deal, and I don't want to, be the one to make it go down. So
yeah, Mickey, this is a good topic because this is actually something that I ran into with the most recent acquisition. Okay, so I had an investor that wanted to become a part of the ownership group, a partner, right? So contributing her $750,000 to acquire the building we had under contract, but also spreading that interest over the other 2 properties. Okay. And we're going back and forth an operating agreement for weeks. Okay. and we were getting down to the wire. I still have like, I didn't have her 100% comfortable. So how we ended up doing it was like, you always have to have something in writing in terms of, especially if you're contributing investment capital, as to how that investment capital is treated. All right. Because if you're just closing, you don't have an operating agreement, and you're putting money into an entity that doesn't even exist, essentially. So we did is that we knew we were never going to be able to get this operating agreement through by the time we needed to close, because we had already asked for this was our second extension that we asked for so far, and the seller was not going to give us any more rope. So we just said, hey, listen, we need $750 to purchase the place. Let's do a 10% interest deferred. Okay, just to basically the same thing as your preferred rate of return that we negotiated the bullet points on, and we'll just give you a first position mortgage on the property, straight up note and mortgage loan, and in the loan documents there'll be a option to convert that debt to 19% equity across all three properties. Okay, so that way we have the time to actually negotiate an operating agreement properly. We can close on time and all that sort of thing, right? So that being said, closing on something without having something in writing, okay, especially with how your capital is being treated, because one thing is, or any capital partner, for instance. So it's like, if the deal goes sideways and the deal needs more cash, like how is the additional cash that's being put into the deal from the ownership group being treated, right? Because the thing is when somebody's an owner, for instance, and they've contributed capital, and then you have another owner that's contributed no capital, zero, right? How is that capital, the actual risk capital, like treated, right? If you didn't have anything in writing, like actually spelling that out, then that $100,000 that like, let's say my capital partner deal, and they have 50% ownership in it, but I have put no money into the deal and I have 50% ownership, means that like I own 50% of the deal. Like he's almost been diluted to, I've been diluted by 50% from day one. Okay. So that's really, really important. And the thing is that if they haven't been able to figure it out now, they are going to drag their feet after closing, right? Oh, we'll do it eventually. Or it's like, well, it's not rocket science. Like an operating agreement for a real estate partnership is not that hard. No, it's not even that. It is that trying to find a real estate attorney who's willing to, I can't believe the amount of difficulty I've had trying to find an attorney in Texas who will do a non-generic operating agreement with 4 partners in different states. Mm-hmm. With the detail, like we're talking, one person's not contributing any money, 3 people are. I was like, I need that spelled out. Oh, yeah, I don't do that too much. So you might want to talk to someone else. Like, really? So I've talked to 4 or 5 attorneys, and it's been so frustrating. I finally found a firm. They know I told them exactly what I want. The guy's like, this is not rocket science. I can do this, not a problem. He can work with our timeline. So I just got an email from him. I talked to him yesterday. So he's like, we're not even going to do a retainer because you got referred to us. Okay, beautiful. We're going to bill hourly. And we're doing a rush on this. And so let me know if that's okay. So I wrote back and I go, can you send me an engagement letter? What's your hourly rate? Like, what the hell? So that was just now in the last, once this meeting started, I went back and forth a little bit. I haven't checked yet. I doubt I have an engagement letter yet with a scope. Mm-hmm. But they're trying to, they're getting me by the hour here because I need it. And, because I explained I need it. The guy's like, I can do this by the end of the week, mm-hmm. Which is a miracle as long as we don't revise it too much. But we're going to be paying for it too, which sucks. But I'm even like, it's fine. There's 4 partners here. It's worth it. Mm-hmm. For a deal like this, it's worth it. Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting closer, but it's already Wednesday evening and I don't have a draft in my hand yet. You know, so I'm frustrated with that. So can I ask you, in turn, like exactly what you're saying, that's my concern is that 3 people are contributing, 1 person isn't. And is there going to be a capital call right away? There's no CapEx on this thing. Everything sounds great, you know, but who knows? So would you have like a 1-pager that says, all right, these people are contributing this much, this person's contributing this, like just a 1-pager, just to get us to the finish line here, like to the closing? Is that what you were suggesting, or not?
I mean, you know, you're acting as a guarantor as well, so it's not like, oh, I can just convert my investment just to a straight up promissory note that's convertible to equity at some point in time, because you're a personal guarantor, right? So it's like, okay, well, if I'm gonna be a personal guarantor, then we need to understand like how, you know, how things are going to work. You know, if there is a capital call, and if there's a partnership loan that's made into the deal, like how is that treated, and what's the process for that? So I think that I don't know, again, this doesn't feel very right to me. Like
it's very different from everything we talk about. They work very differently in that storage group. These people have a lot of money, all these different people, and they just want to put it somewhere. They don't want to even be active. It's usually 1 person in the group who wants to be active. For me to sit there and I'm parsing through this document, the one operating agreement that we did get a draft of, I was like in shock. And those 2 guys, the other 2 guys are like, oh, if Mickey's okay with it, I'm fine with it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that I'd be a stickler about is the treatment of the investment capital is put into the partnership. Okay. So like you can use, like, let's say like a boilerplate, but you want to make sure that that's like treated right. And then also in terms of distributions, right? Like typically in a lot of like operating agreements is that there is members can only receive distributions after, you know, the members that have contributed capital have earned a certain amount, right? So, you know, so there's like those types of things, like all the other stuff in terms of, you know, yearly minutes and, you know, and like all that stuff that's like built into a lot of operating agreements. Like I'm not so much of a stickler on that as it is to the actual, you know, treatment of your capital too. And also it's like if the deal goes sideways and then there's a cash call, and then you know only 2 of you can pony up or are willing to pony up the cash, like what happens to the other members? Do they get diluted? Like, you know, that's important stuff.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens in 1 week. We'll see. I'll report back.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, keep us in the loop. Well, it's 8 o'clock, everybody. Hopefully you got value of today's meeting. And anything else that you guys wanted to bring us in terms of a deal update or anything like that? Okay. So we will not be having the meeting over Zoom next week. So if you're from out of town and you can make it into town, we'd love to have you here in Rochester. Just give us a heads up. We can roll out the red carpet for you and make it into a multi-day thing. But for those of you who are going, it's at 6 o'clock next Wednesday at Radio Social. If you need the address, just let me know. But it's Radio Social in Rochester, New York. So we won't have a Zoom meeting after the next week, but then we'll resume on the regular schedule after that. So anyways, good luck, everybody, and we'll see you all very, very soon.